Hey everybody, it's Paul from Screenwriting Scribe back with you all again. Sorry, it's been a little hit or miss the last couple of weeks with doing this live stream, but I've been trying to get back to it. Next week, again, is probably going to be a miss just because of just the way my work schedule is working out, which isn't always helpful. Why can't they just let me, they know I'm streaming. Why don't they just let me stream? Hey, today we have a special treat for you. Sometime a little later in the show, we're going to have an interview with the creator and the CEO of Studio Vidity. If you don't know what Studio Vidity is, it's very much like Studio Binder. It's a program where you can do screenwriting, and at the same time, in Studio Vidity's case, it's a lot cheaper than Studio Binder, and it also can be used for directors to help them sort of figure out scenes. It could also be used for producers as well too to sort of figure out a budget. And so he'll be on in just a little while. And as soon as I see him on, I'll let you know. This is my first time doing an interview using StreamYard. So there's probably going to be a couple hiccups along the way, but just so you know what's going on. But until then, I think he's going to come around the bottom of the hour, about 1:30. So we'll give it a try and see what happens. So for right now, we're going to take a look at our box office numbers and see what has been going on since we missed last week. And to be honest, there wasn't a lot going on last week in terms of the box office, was there? Because there wasn't anything really out. Crazy, isn't that? Yeah, it just seems like there's not been a lot of good stuff out recently. And I don't know why. I don't know why sort of they had this desert or famine in this particular type of marketplace right now. I don't know what was going on with them, but as we look at the movies for the top 10 this time around, Alien Romulus is still hanging in at number 10. Hey, they made over $100,000. You know, the interesting thing about Alien Romulus is actually most of their box office is actually coming from overseas, which is sort of the reverse of Beetlejuice, as well as Twisters, which are most of the domestic audience. So we see that Beetlejuice held on to that top spot again against Transformers 1. Even though Transformers 1, I think, is probably the better of the two movies, this didn't really hit well with audience, or maybe it's going to pick up in the next weekend as well, too. So the interesting thing about Transformers 1, and we'll take a look at the screenwriters here in just a couple moments, but it was written, the people who wrote this, it shouldn't be too big of a surprise for us. They've written some pretty solid movies in the past. A lot of Marvel stuff as well too. So in some sense, sort of the themes that they touch on in Transformers 1, they're not as deep as other movies and stuff, but it shouldn't surprise us that it did fairly well. Well, when I say fairly well, 25 million compared, if you look at the rest of the box office, is actually really pretty good in terms of that. I know Paramount Pictures would have liked a lot bigger of a box office number. It's also probably one of the smaller Transformer movies that has come out in recent memory. I think Bumblebee was the only other one that had a similar low opening week box office. But I think word of mouth about this one's going to pick up, and I think you're going to see that it's going to actually do quite well in the rest of the box office as well, probably more so on digital as well too. Now, the interesting things with it being from Paramount Pictures and they have their own sort of streaming service, is that something that has caused people to sort of say, well, it's more of a kids movie, maybe we'll wait and just pick it up when it comes out on streaming. So it's interesting with that sort of dynamics that is happening now within sort of the space, with the way that digital and movies and streaming are all coming together and coalescing together. Movie theaters are not always the biggest bang for your buck. They used to be, but a lot of times people are now going to digital. They're buying stuff right on digital. You know, it's probably a $16 to $25 for your ticket. Now, if you're in a high-priced area where movie tickets cost like $20, and if you're going to see this with somebody else, it's definitely a savings. For me in my area, I can probably spend about $6 to $10 to get in to see a movie. So for me, buying digital isn't as big of an incentive right now, but maybe in the future. So as we look at the rest of sort of this top 10, Universal Pictures brought out Speak No Evil in its second week. You're seeing some pretty decent drops. You don't see a lot of big drops. So anything under 50% is a pretty decent drop. Is a good drop in that respect, because we're expecting something a little less. Never Let Go from Lionsgate Films. Disappointing again at 4.5. million. Now, the interesting thing we'll touch about with Lionsgate here in a couple moments too is this movie and the rest of its sort of lackluster of a summer lineup has really caused it to do something really radical. And I know a lot of people are not going to like the direction they're going to go, but they actually talked to an AI company and are going to try to figure out how to better come up with not necessarily movies, but how to produce movies in a cheaper sort of manner, more cost-efficient manner. And we'll talk about that in a couple articles that I have coming up. Number 5, Deadpool and Wolverine. 9 weeks out, still in the top 5. Holy cow, 3.9 million. And this is going to come out to digital before it's going to come out on Disney Plus. So just so you're aware of that as well too. Substance, another new film, 3.1. Am I a Racist with Matt Walsh, 2.5. Now, I was going to be curious. I didn't have a chance to look up yet, but I was interested to see how that is doing in terms of something like Bowling for Columbine or like a Michael Moore movie, to see how it's been doing in terms of a documentary and stuff like that. I think probably one of the best, at least grossing documentaries probably was An Inconvenient Truth. I have to look up some numbers and stuff but I'm just sort of guessing at this point. So don't take me as gospel for that. And then Reagan, another sort of more conservative based movie. And then another sort of documentary, 1.4 with Young Cook, I'm Still Here. And again, as I talked to you about before, Alien Romulus. So it looks like, again, Beetlejuice is going to probably be in the top 3 for the next week, because if we look at what's coming up next, we're not going to see anything that's really that exciting coming up. So if we look at some of our upcoming movies here, at least the ones that are going to be present in my particular neighborhood, let's see here. The next ones that are going to sort of be up in my particular neck of the woods is going to be, survey says, here we go, Wild Robot. So Wild Robot is going to be coming out. This could, it's sort of like Transformers 1. There's worry that this is, even though it might be a good movie, it might not really have that big an impact on the box office. Are people going to want to go see this? So my other main critique is to when Paramount launched Transformers, why didn't you put it out during the summer? We had some lackluster. You could have done Labor Day. You could have made this. I think it would have been a great Labor Day movie, because that would have been something that kids could go see. And why did they put it out in the middle of school year when they're not going to get as good of attendance and stuff like that? So to me, I was wondering, I think Paramount dropped the ball on Transformers 1 because they could have gotten a better box office. So the Wild Robot will be out. Megalopolis. Are you interested in seeing that? This is another reason why Lionsgate might be going with AI, is because this has gotten a lot of really poor reviews. And so we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with Megalopolis. I'm hopefully going to go see this train wreck of a movie. It could be good. I don't know. I just have a lot of people have been passing on it. And so it's got Francis Ford Coppola as a director and writer. We'll have to wait and see what that is. But Transformers 1 still out in the theater. So especially if you're wanting to watch a family movie, I've heard a lot of good reviews for this. Jeremy Johns gave this, buy this on Blu-ray. Greg Owen gave this a definite look-see as well too. So two people I really trust in the theater sort of space. This is a pretty good movie. So I would definitely, if you're looking for something that's not Beetlejuice and something that's got a pretty good complete story. And again, we'll talk about the screenwriters here in just a couple moments. Never Let Go. Again, another reason why Lionsgate is going to AI to help sort of figure out what kind of content to put out there, because this one was another stinker. Am I Racist? God's Not Dead. The Killer Game. At least these are the ones. Speak No Evil and Beetlejuice are all the ones that are sort of still in my theater around here as well too. So there's really not a lot out there that is going to have a lot of big competition with Beetlejuice or Transformers 1. So I think either of those could do really well. So I think that's something to keep in mind as we look at the next week's box office. I think it's sort of wide open. I mean, Beetlejuice is not unreasonable to see it still retain the #1 spot, but I wonder with the word of mouth that Transformers 1 is getting, whether they'll go actually come back in and do a lot better within the box office. I wonder if they'll actually get a spike with more people having seen it and saying some good things about that as well too. So let's talk a little bit about who wrote Transformers 1, because I think this is interesting. It's always, since we're a screenwriting channel, I think it's important to take a look at the screenwriters that produce what we're talking about here. And let me get to the file here, because it's always the last window that I'm trying to get at. There we go. All right, so as we look at sort of who wrote the Transformers 1, we can take a look and see that it's Eric Pearson. Now, take a look at some of the movies that Eric Pearson wrote. I think they're going to seem very familiar. As you can always see, you can see Black Widow. He wrote Black Widow. And so the 9 movies that he wrote, Marvel 1 is a video game movie. Or no, just a video. Marvel One Shot, Funny Thing Happened to Me on the Way to Thor's Hammer. Marvel One Shot, Item 46, which was a screenplay. So he did a one shot for Agent Carter. And then he did Agent Carter. He did 8 episodes of that particular series. Then he wrote Thor Ragnarok. Yeah, so he came with Thor. I thought with Thor, that was pretty decent one, 7.9%. Godzilla versus Kong, again, not too bad of a movie as well. Black Widow, that's debatable. I think a lot of people weren't very excited about that. But then Transformers 1, but you can sort of see that the quality of his work, he's in the upper 6s, if not low 7s. So we shouldn't be surprised with how Transformers 1's turned out, was because it has a good screenwriter. And so he's probably the main author, the main writer on this. If we look at the other 2, which is a writing team again, you have a writing team of Andrew Bayer as well as Gabriel Ferrari. So I'll just take a look at Andrew's stuff, because they both, again, basically have the same films underneath them. So the only difference between the 2 are these last 2, with Andrew having written The Haunt as well as The Crisis of Being Dr. Adam Porter. But you can see they wrote Ant-Man and the Wasp, Die in a Gunfight, which is probably the worst movie in terms of ratings between these different screenwriters. No Exit and Transformers 1. So I'm assuming they probably did a lot of sort of like extra work to just fill in lines or to make scenes a little differently and stuff like that. So, but at the end of the day, you have writers who've written major projects before. You've had writers that actually get a decent score, 7.0. As well as we looked at, as we remember from Pearson, he's got some other higher scores as well too. So again, it shouldn't surprise us, because like I said, I think a lot of people were sort of shocked and surprised when this movie, people are like, well, the story's not too bad. Well, again, I think people are forgetting you need to look at who the writers are. I know Grace Randolph was talking about, well, this is from the director of Toy Story 4. I'm like, who cares? He's not writing the picture. He's not writing the script. Yeah, I mean, if the movie is boring from terms of the visual perspective, sure, I would be harping on the director. But if you want a story that's good and compelling and keeps you in the story, then it's probably a lot more important to take a look at who the writers are. So again, they had some wonderful writers with that. And again, it should not surprise us that Transformers 1, it looks like it's a good movie, and that's why audiences are coming back to see it. So, all right. So I'm going to change the topic a little bit. So that's our numbers for this week. So as we think about the end of this particular part or segment that we're on right now, what do you guys think in terms of how do you think the box office is going to be next week? Do you feel like Beetlejuice is going to come on strong still? Or do you think The Wild Robot make it strong? Or is Transformers 1 going to turn around on the box office and actually maybe outperform, instead of going down several percentage points, maybe it actually goes down only 12% and has another big box office? What do you guys think? Leave that in the comment section below. Well, let's take a look at our next. Let's talk about AI filmmaking, because that's the next big topic that we're going to be exploring here. Let's pull that up. So this comes from Technopedia, and let's take a look here as we take a look at this particular article. Let me get to the right spot here. Here we go. All right, so as we look at this, so it's why Lionsgate Runaway AI Films is sort of the company that Lionsgate is partnered with. Deal rightly scare creatives. Okay, so So the key takeaways: Lionsgate partnered with AI vendor Runway to create AI-generated films using their film archives. The deal has sparked criticism with concerns about replacing human creatives in film production. Lionsgate claims that the AI model will augment, not displace, human creators in pre- and post-production processes. The partnership comes amid a lawsuit against Runway for using artist works without consent. This is something that a lot of the AI firms are dealing with right now. There's been several lawsuits to say, hey, you are using works to train your AIs that we did not consent you to do. And many fear AI-generated films will lack the authenticity and creativity that come from human expression. Now, for this last one, I agree with that, but at the same time, we set the bar so low that people might actually like AI films because we've had so much garbage out in the marketplace for such a long time now. Give me 1 second here. Hi. Nope, we're good. Thanks. All right. That's the bad thing about being upstairs for me doing my streaming here. So don't worry, when you watch this later on, I'll have edited that out. All right. So getting back to my point, many fear AI-generated films will lack the authenticity and creativity that come from human expression. Again, humans haven't done a good job of allowing us to see good, entertaining films. Like I said, if you look at how much the box office has done this year, they've done pretty bad. So let's dive into the article a little bit more to get a little bit more understanding of what's going on. So they write, just when you thought generative AI was starting to calm down, a Hollywood studio partners with a leading AI vendor to bring AI-generated films to life. Last week, Lionsgate, a film studio behind big motion pictures like The Hunger Games and John Wick, I'm glad they put those in there, but they also need to remind us of all the horrible hits that they've had this year. And this is sort of the reason why Lionsgate is in the position it is, because it's had a lot of big stinkers this year, had a lot of losses. And so this is why they're entering into an agreement with the generative AI vendor Runway to train a new AI model based on the company's films and TV archives. While many will undoubtedly be excited to see how AI can enhance film production, it's hard not to see that this is an attempt to replace human creatives in the industry who helped build this library of content in the first place. So the interesting thing here, so let's take a look at the PR spin aside. Many artists are going to have their work scrapped and used to create content that's going to displace them in the pre and post-production process. Now, the interesting thing about this too is I'm wondering about the residuals. So when a movie gets shown on streaming, except for Apple, which I found out today, Apple does not give residuals. So the reason why Apple movies cost as much as they do is because they don't give back-end residuals. So like if you show something on Apple, once Apple gets done paying everybody, that's it. You don't get any future checks at all out of that. Excuse me. So that's, I think, an interesting thing to sort of to think about. So the other thing too, as when I was thinking of this deal originally, and I don't know much about this deal in terms of, I wonder if this is going to help them sort of figure out what stuff to have better budgets. I think one of the things that we've noticed all in Hollywood movies is how much the movies have had these big inflated budgets, and can AI help bring those budgets back down? In that sense, I don't think that's a bad idea. But if it's going to be just repurposing old content, like what we're going to talk about here in a moment, I'm not a big fan of that as well, too. I think AI as a helper is okay, but AI as the ingenuity, AI as the creative, I do have a problem with, because as we've seen so far, the iterations that you can easily tell when you have AI write something versus when you have a human write something. There's just something about AI writing that is very inauthentic, that is very stale. I was talking to somebody on email about this just a little while ago, and it's just like, yeah, you can definitely tell the difference, especially in dialogue, about how AI writes and versus a human. And yeah, it's going to get better, but at this stage of the game, it's not even close, I wouldn't say. And on that note, at this stage, the exact details of the Lionsgate Runway deal are limited, but we do know that it will lead to a creation of a new AI model to help generate cinematic video. This means that the content from films like Dirty Dancing, The Twilight Saga, Saw, Rambo, and The Crow will be scraped and used to create new video content. Of course, Lionsgate has been quick to position the move as an attempt to empower rather than displace human creatives. I mean, that's their deal because, yeah, I mean, no one wants to be accused of selling out to the robots, but in some sense, that's what they're doing. Several of our filmmakers are already excited about the potential applications to their pre-production and post-production processes. We view AI as a great tool for augmenting, enhancing, and supplementing our current operations. And if it leaves it at that, if they use it as a supplementing or enhancing, great. But we all know where these businesses are going to go with this. As much as I like having AI to help with writing and stuff like this, and you can call me a hypocrite all you want when it comes to this, I think this is a lot different. There's a lot of difference for me asking AI to help me sort of outline what I want to do to my script to this saying, okay, we're going to replace the actors and directors with creating this film. There's a big leap in that. So One Ray co-founder and CEO Cristobal Valverde was also eager to stress how the move will help creatives to augment the creative process. Okay, let's see what he has to say. We've committed to giving artists, creators, and studios the best and most powerful tools to augment their workflows and to enable new ways of bringing their stories to life, he said in an official release. This all sounds great on paper, but the talk of creatives being empowered by these types of tools rings hollow when an AI model is going to be trained on their work with the possible intention of replacing them in the creative process as part of a capital-efficient approach to content creation. And I think that's the other thing, too, is I think studios and stuff have to stop creating content. They need to be creating stories. And there's a difference between the two. There's a difference in how you create content and how we create stories. It's worth noting that the deal does not come while Runway is in the midst. It does come, that I talked about before, there's a class action lawsuit for allegedly using artists' work to train its AI models without consent. But just after Lionsgate production, The Crow underperformed at the box office again. So the pressure is on Lionsgate because they've had so many fails this year. And probably in the video portion of this that I'll put out a little later tonight, I'll talk a little bit more about the different types of failures that they've had. So how AI-generated film will impact human creatives. So far, there's been significant criticism surrounding the partnership online, particularly among creatives. Film concept artist Reed Sutherland quickly voices his approval of the decision, tweeting, "I wonder how the directors and actors of these films feel about having their work fed into the AI to make a proprietary model. As an artist on the Hunger Games, I'm pissed. This is the first step in trying to replace artists and filmmakers." And we're actually going to get to this point here in just a second. This is a relevant point because though writers, directors, and animators and other creatives will have signed over rights to their work, it's unclear whether they would have done so if they knew that their performances, designs, and likeness could be repackaged by artificial intelligence in synthetic media. Of course, that's not even mentioning whether or not it would be fair for deceased actors, notably Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing or Brandon Lee from The Crow, to have their performances and likenesses used to train AI models that could potentially use and recreate the work in new content. So again, I think the other thing too is, are they going to pay these people, then the families of these people, residuals for what they're doing too? I think that's the other thing too. I think if people could get paid for what they're doing, they should have a choice. Obviously, they always have to have a choice, but I think that's an interesting thing as well too. What's the choice? And are they getting paid residuals, or they just said, "Well, you signed over to that, so we can do whatever you want," which I think Disney did with people who signed up as extras. They have a likeness to your face, I think, for like a couple of years or 99 years or something like that. Now, all the creative language in the world cannot get around the fact that the deal doesn't look good for creatives. And there's a reason that the Writers Guild of America went on strike against the use of AI writing scripts in 2023. And they felt there was an existential threat in Hollywood studios using AI in the creative process. So pre and post productions are gobbled up by AI. There's going to be less entry points for human creatives. Consumers are going to have to face a scenario where a stylistic direction of the film is increasingly influenced by AI. So here's an interesting question. I mean, so I think you're seeing sort of the influence of CGI, but granted, humans control that a little bit more. But yeah, so you're going to be having people sort of, will there be a new flair? And if there's not a new flair, will people go to the movies, or will people, I think the human creativity can never be taken out of movies because of just that last point, because is the AI ever going to get to the point to be able to do iterations like humans do? And I think that's the reason why I always think you're going to have humans in film, humans in writing, and that type of stuff. Because computers can only do so many iterations, and they do not process the same way that humans do. So, the good questions it had: would a George Lucas Star Wars have generated the generational interest it had if the artistic generation was guided by AI? Probably not. The moment AI starts getting added into the creative process, the integrity of the end product will start to suffer as decisions and designs become more isolated from authentic human expression, become watered down with pleasing but hollow outputs created by machines. Part of the fun watching films is seeing what journey the director wants to take you on. The best films take you along for the ride, whereas with the current state of AI-generated media, it's guessing and regurgitating what you want to see. And so again, that's the reason why I don't think humans are ever going to go out of the creative process, because AI is going to be just doing that. It's going to be guessing to what you see. And I think people want to go on that journey. People want to have that experience, because that's the thing I've always talked about AI, is that AI can't replicate who we are and what's going on and stuff like that. And so I think over a period of time, I think you're going to see AI is going to come in, and it's going to be more of that ability to help enhance creative process. It's going to cut down on, so it's going to help streamline the creative process. But at the end of the day, I think if a studio like Lionsgate just did AI content, they're going to see that their movies will not do well. And if anything, they're going to do even worse. And so they're going to be screaming to get creatives back into the process. So I think Lionsgate is sort of that experiment right now, sort of that canary in the coal mine. Are they going to be able to figure out what they can do and what's going to work for them or not? So I'm interested to see how it turns out. What do you guys think about AI helping to create movies like this, to be a part of the studio process, to potentially, now again, we don't know all the details yet, but potentially take somebody like Patrick Swayze and put him back on in terms of the movie making ability, to show Patrick Swayze again and put him in new and different scenarios. Again, I would argue if they're going to do anything like that, they have to figure out the residual process first. They have to figure out how they're going to pay for the estate, because that's still his likeness. That's still him. And he did not sign anything because he's died. Same thing with Brendan Lee, and any of the other actors who've died or passed away. So I think it's important that they get that figured out. But I also think it's important that we don't allow companies just to do this stuff for cost savings to measure. I think it's good for cost savings measure, but at the same time, they have to realize that creatives are going to be, creatives are the lifeblood. And like I said, you saw that in Transformers 1. You saw that in it's a good story. And I don't think you could come up with something as good as that with AI and stuff like that. So I think that's what I'm sort of we're thinking about right now. So, all right. So I got about 2 minutes before we hopefully have the CEO on. So that should be hopefully in just a couple moments here. Just sort of let you know, this past couple week has been just a little hard, just getting some, I got a lot of stuff in the pipeline I got to get out. We're going to talk about Drama Queen. Is it as good as Kitsenarist? And so we're going to do a demo, hopefully in the next couple of days with that. I got some updates for So Create coming out. They have a new feature, which I think is really cool, in that it is going to allow you to put a link like in Reddit, and people can come in and read it. And then the cool thing is you can see if they actually read it or not. They say, oh yeah, I've read it. You can actually go in and see who read your and how much of your stuff you've read. And I'll show you that update as well too. So we'll do that. I'm still working on we're going to do a versus, Save the Cat versus Kill the Dog. There's some controversy as to what is the better book. Whether Paul Guyette is just a little too mad at Blake Snyder. I've had a couple of people talk to me about that, so we're going to take a look at that. So that video is still in the can as well too. So we're still got some good stuff coming along the way. And hopefully I'm going to be able to get a lot of these videos out. The hard part is just there's a lot of videos. There's so many videos I'm trying to get done and just so little time sometimes. Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. We're just sort of waiting for the CEO to show up. And so then after that, we'll have our interview. I just got to make sure I know where my water's at. Where's my water? Oh, there's my water. Okay. So, yeah. So again, Studio Vidity. Actually, so the reason why I got in touch with the CEO from Studio Vidity is because I've been working on a video for Android products for your Android phone. There's, believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff for the iPhone, the iPad, but not for your Android phone. And so I reached back out to Studio Vidity because I had talked to him last year a little bit, and he invited me to come back and take a look at how Studio Video has been doing. And they've done a lot. They have a small team, and they've been working. They've gotten more done than Final Draft has done, and I think Final Draft has a bigger team. So it's going to be interesting to see. He's going to come in and talk a little bit about what they've changed over the course of time and what they've been working on. Hopefully you'll be able to join. Like I said, this is the first time I've done. So if you see me looking down at my phone here, that's what I'm doing. Just checking to make sure that he can make it on for us and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's sort of what we're waiting to do right now. But other than that, I think those are the big things that are going on with the channel and stuff like that. And I'll put a timestamp in here as I do with all my live streams, so you'll be able to see where we begin and where we end about stuff. I'll probably also make it into a separate video as well too, so you can see it as a separate video. But like I said, I've been liking doing the live streams because it makes me get ready to do stuff and things like that. So I'm excited to have him on, try to do this interview, because normally I do interviews over Zoom, and this one is theoretically supposed to be better in terms of quality and stuff like that. So in some sense, we're trying out StreamYard today. Is it as good as it thinks it is, or at least all the stuff that I hope it is? So let's see here. So I'll give him about a couple more minutes here, and then I'll text him and see how we're doing. So let's see, what else can I talk about? So like I said, I'm just still waiting for the CEO to pop on here, and to we'll have our interview here in just a couple of moments here. And I think a lot of people, they have actually a pretty big subscriber base. Studio Vidity has, I think he was telling me, like 100,000 folks that use Studio Vidity right now. And so I'll let him know that I'm waiting for him. There we go. So he knows that I'm ready for him anytime that he's ready. Let's see here. So like I said, and I'm sort of new at this particular thing too, so I'll get to wait to see if we'll see how that all works out here. So good, he saw it. All right, so yeah, so that's sort of what I know about Studio Vidity. And again, like I said, if you're watching this, just you can fast forward to the section on when we have the actual interview, because like I said, he should be on hopefully any minute now. So let's see. Otherwise, screenwriting software wise, I told you about the updates to SoCreate. I haven't seen a lot with I'm trying to think. I haven't seen a lot with Final Draft recently. I'm still working on my product about helping you use Final Draft efficiently to show you how to use it, and hopefully I'm going to get that out. Fade-in has been pretty cool. I talked to some folks about maybe some collaboration between a couple of different softwares, because they have some different things that work well together, and so we'll see how those work together. So hopefully maybe we can do hopefully have people do some collaborations with one another, and I think that'd be really pretty cool. So let's see here, what else? So right now I can talk a little bit about pop culture. So everybody's favorite Rings of Power. I don't know how you guys all feel about Rings of Power, but it's been I have my feed is pretty full of people not liking the Rings of Power. I think it gets back to what we've talked about in the past, in where we have different expectations of what an adaptation means. And so how do we do an adaptation and do adaptation well? And so I think the bad thing with Amazon is they should have said something that this is not really an adaptation of Tolkien's work, but just sort of like not even a reimagination, but would you even say based on Tolkien's work? But done a little differently than what people are expecting. So, yeah. So there's that, and then of course a lot of people. Agatha has come out, and I've heard some different. So there's been some interesting, different opinions about Agatha, which is another Disney show that's come out. And the interesting thing is that Agatha knows they're not getting a second season. They asked the red carpet people, and they're like, "Nope, we're not getting a second season." But again, it's sort of like I think Hollywood has really forgotten who they're writing for. They're just writing for whoever, or the biggest sin people have said is that a lot of these screenwriters are writing for themselves and not writing for audiences. And so Leslie Headland is one person that I think people have said that has had that sort of sin. And sort of we talk about have people sort of forgotten about good versus evil? Do we even have that in today's modern age? If we go back to our example for Rings of Power, we have an orc family that is trying to what do I want to say? Is trying to get away from the war, and orcs are bred for war. And so the interesting thing about that is people are like, okay, so what does that look like, or why is that even happening? Because orcs are supposed to be this race that is supposed to take on good people. And so like I said, so I think people are like, there could be good orcs and stuff like that. And so you get this sort of moral relativism that we've sort of seen over the last 5 to 10 years, where we're always thinking, well, how is the good guy really not good and how's the bad guy really not bad? We think those are going to make interesting stories, but at the end of the day, I think some of that is okay to sprinkle in from time to time, but every now and again, I don't think it really does a good job of really helping with stories and stuff like that. And so, I think you need to I think audiences sort of do better. Well, I think in terms of how people interact, you have good and bad. And I think people don't see in sort of moral relativism anymore. They see just in terms of good and evil more so. And I think as humans, we try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, for our stories, we don't really want that. So let me check and see if he got my messages, because I know I invited him. So let me go check my email real quick. I'm going to give myself 30 seconds here and see if I can find him here. I'll be right back. Well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a hold of our guests for today. I thought we had everything all sort of figured out, but I guess I don't. So I think I'm going to end the stream right now. And if I get back on with him, I will give you a holler. Thanks for checking us out today. Like I said, take a look at, you'll be seeing a bunch of stuff that I have coming out this week. I hope you all have a great day. And like I said, I'll get that interview out for you for Studio Avidity here in the next, hopefully this week sometime. Hey, take care and keep writing.